we'll go, well, you know what? At least she's treating us well, so we like Roseanne now. We're doing the same thing with Kanye West. But I would just warn folks on the right. You know, you can be happy that Kanye West said something that seems to be conservative, but let's not pretend that Kanye West is some sort of genius, okay? I will use every opportunity ever to play this clip. This is from Jimmy Kimmel's show, back when Jimmy Kimmel's show was not garbage. He had on Josh Groban, and Josh Groban, the singer, and Josh Groban saying some of the best Kanye West tweets. Here's what that sounds like.
Fur pillow are hard to actually sleep on. Man, whatever happened to my antique fish tank?
You'll get all of your favorites.
Classical music is tight.
These are all his tweets.
Awesome decisions in bike stores.
Okay, so I would play the whole video because I love it so much. But Kanye West is not like a super intelligent human being, and he is certainly not politically intelligent. And so the right resonating to anything anyone in pop culture says because, look, that guy's famous. Okay, Kanye West tweeted out, he tweeted out the other day, self-victimization is a disease. He has also in the past tweeted out, quote, I hate when I'm on a flight and I wake up with a water bottle next to me like, oh, great. Now I got to be responsible for this water bottle. Okay? This is a guy who tweeted, quote, I specifically ordered Persian rugs with my cherub imagery. What do I have to do to get a simple Persian rug with cherub imagery? Or this one. Man, ninjas are kind of cool. I just don't know any personally. How about this one? Sometimes I push the door close button on people running toward the elevator. I just need my own elevator sometimes. My sanctuary. I will say, dude's funny, but should he be deciding tax policy? Probably not. Don't you hate when people clap too loud in the car? It's like, yo, this is a closed area. Clapping is way too loud. Like, I love this. This is an entire tweet storm. My favorite unit of measurement is a bleep load. Like when people ask how many shoes I got, I tell them I got a bleep load of shoes. How much is a bleep load? I'm assuming it's much more than a piss load. Kanye West, man. This is, what a genius. I just threw some kazoo on this B word. Yeah, this is the guy you're going to for your guidance in politics? Really? Really, folks? And then we wonder why our politics is so stupid? Because we are stupid, okay? The answer is because we're dumb. I'll cut right to the chase. We're all stupid. Okay, so more on our stupidity in just a second. But first, you're going to have to go over to dailywire.com and subscribe. For $9.99 a month, you can get a subscription to dailywire.com. When you do, you get the rest of this show live. You also, subscribers in the first place, they have a full list by the editors of GQ of 21 books that you should not read. 21 books you should not read. So that's exciting because there are lots of books that I think that you should not read. But the books that they suggest, like this is so stupid. It's basically the SJW guide to books you should burn. And it's pretty incredible. So number one on their list is Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. Okay, Larry McMurtry is not on the right. Okay, Larry McMurtry, I believe, is the same guy. Didn't he write Brokeback Mountain? Larry McMurtry? I believe that's right. I believe that he wrote, yeah, that's right. He wrote the screenplay to Brokeback Mountain. So Larry McMurtry is not exactly a right-wing dude. They say you shouldn't read Lonesome Dove, which is just a story about two friends on the prairie, basically. And it says, quote, I actually love Lonesome Dove, but I'm convinced that the cowboy mythos, with its rigid, masculine, emotional landscape, glorification of guns and destruction, and misogynistic gender roles, is a major factor in the degradation of America. Rather than perpetuate this myth, I'd love for everyone, but particularly American men, to read The Mountain Lion by Gene Stafford. It's a wicked, brilliant, dark book set largely on a ranch in Colorado, but it acts in many ways as a strong rebuttal to all the old toxic Western stereotypes we need to explode. You mean the Western stereotypes about people pioneering out into an area where they had no protection in order to build the rest of the United States? You mean that Western ethos? You mean the ethos of men protecting women? That ethos? And not everything that happened in the Old West was good. There's plenty that was bad. Later this week, I'm going to recommend a movie that's about a lot of the bad stuff that happened in the West. But Lonesome Dove is not about those things, and you're stupid. Okay, bottom line, GQ editors, you are incredibly stupid. They say you shouldn't read The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. Okay, and what they say is that instead of reading The Catcher in the Rye, you should read a book called Olivia, the story of a British teenage girl who's sent to a boarding school in France, who falls in love with a female teacher, and it's basically Lolita, but with lesbians. Okay, and the guy who writes it, this saying that you shouldn't read Catcher in the Rye, is the guy who wrote Call Me By Your Name, which is, again, Lolita for gay guys. So just very, very exciting stuff from GQ. They say you shouldn't read Goodbye to All That by Robert Graves, which is a book about Graves' time in the trenches during World War I. It's a great book. They say it's incredibly racist because he includes samples of near unintelligible essays produced by three of his students, Mahmoud Muhammad, Mahmoud Muhammad, Mahmoud Muhammad, and Mahmoud Muhammad, from his post-war stint as an English instructor in Cairo. Instead, so basically, you should definitely not read this book about World War I because it was written by a guy who lived during World War I, and during World War I, people were more racist, so we shouldn't read anything from them. So don't read any old literature, guys, because if you read old literature, you might learn that old people had bad racial stereotypes, and then you might want to fight against those racial stereotypes by reading old books. That's bad. They also say don't read The Old Man and the Sea. They say that you should not read, let's see, A Farewell to Arms. They really hate Hemingway. They're really angry with Hemingway. They say you shouldn't read Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. I actually think Blood Meridian is overrated, but Cormac McCarthy is a very good writer. They say you should not read John Adams by David McCulloch. Do not read John Adams. Do not do it. Instead, you should read a history about the assassination of President Garfield. Okay? Sure? And then they say 9 and 10. Do not read The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. So they really, really hate Twain. Why? The worst crime committed by Adventures of Huckleberry Twin is that it makes first-time Twain readers think Twain wrote tedious, meandering stories. He did, as is evidenced by this, his book of tedious, meandering stories, but he also wrote a lot of richly entertaining meandering stories that are not constrained by the ham-fisted narration of a fictional backcountry child or suffused with his sweaty imitation of a slave talking. Sweaty imitation of a slave talking? What the hell are you even talking about? Okay, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn is one of the great works of American literature, and it is an anti-slavery tome, you morons. But again, history means nothing here. I want to go through the rest of this list in just a second. So here's some of the other things on the list. I have to finish what they say here about Huckleberry Finn. They say, read Frederick Douglass's first-hand account of slavery, which is equal parts shocking and heartbreaking. First of all, I've recommended Frederick Douglass, but you don't have to ignore Huckleberry Finn. I love this. They say Mark Twain was a racist. Just read Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn is determined not to be a racist book. The whole point of the book is that black slavery is an evil, you idiots. They recommend, there are a couple books they recommend that are pretty good, like The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich by William Shirer, which I've recommended on the show. But I love this. Number 12 on their list of books you definitely should not read is the Bible. You definitely should not read the Bible. They say the Holy Bible is rated very highly by all the people who supposedly live by it, but who in actuality have not read it. Okay, so I agree, not enough people have actually read the Bible. But they say those who have read it know there are some good parts, but the overall, it is certainly not the finest thing that man has ever produced. Oh, you mean the basis for all of Western civilization is not the finest thing that man has ever produced? There's no way to read Shakespeare without knowing the Bible. There's no way to read the Declaration of Independence without knowing the Bible. There's no way to read any modern literature without knowing biblical references. There's no way to read anything that Westerners have written that has any importance. You can't read Dostoevsky. You cannot read Tolstoy. You cannot read any great Western literature without reading the Bible, even the stuff that is directed against the Bible. Right? You even can't read, stuff that I think is stupid crap at the left legs, like The Handmaid's Tale, without understanding the Bible. He says, I love this. It is repetitive, self-contradictory, sententious, foolish, and even at times ill-intentioned. Okay, editors of GQ, I'm sure that you know more than the rest of human history combined. Instead, they recommend that you read a book called The Notebook. No, not the one about the two youngsters who have sex, but they're actually old. Not that one. Something called Agoda Christoph, a marvelous tale of two brothers who have to get along when things get rough. And I love this. The subtlety and cruelty of this story is like that famous sword stroke from below the boat that plunged upward through the bowels, the lungs, and the throat, and into the brain of the rower. Okay, then? All right. They say you shouldn't read Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is really bad, because if you read Lord of the Rings, then you might know about things like virtue. That would be bad. Also, don't read Dracula, because Dracula is boring. This is not true, by the way. Dracula is actually very not boring. It's a really good book. It's anti-Semitic, right? It doesn't cut in favor of my folks, but it is not a bad book. Catch-22, they say you shouldn't read. I love this. I could never get into Catch-22. It fails to capture the absurdities and impossible conflicts of war. What in the world are you talking about? The entire book is about the absurdity of war. The title of the book is Catch-22. The Catch-22 is that if you fly too many missions, right, if you're capable of flying a lot of missions, then they put you up in the air, even if you've already fulfilled your quota. And if you don't fly enough missions, they won't let you out, so they make you fill more missions. That's what Catch-22 is. The whole thing is about the absurdity of war, you numbskulls. They say that you should not read Gravity's Rainbow by Thomas Pynchon. You should instead read Inherent Vice by Thomas Pynchon. Okay, Gravity's Rainbow is unreadable. There is no question. But Inherent Vice is not a good book, okay? So if you're going to read Pynchon, go read Crying of Lot 49. They say you shouldn't read Slaughterhouse-Five by Vonnegut. You shouldn't read Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. You definitely should not read that. So some of the great Westerns, some of the great literature of the Western canon, you should definitely not read, but you should read these obscure SJW books that they are recommending for you from GQ. So well.
We will make America great again.